Good morning, church. It's May 21st, and it's time for the Daily Devo, brought to you by the Jeffries. Let's jump right in today, Carrie. Why don't you recap us from last time?
Okay, so if you remember, we left off yesterday where Saul had called up a medium to kind of show him what was coming, what was in store.
Right, a medium he outlawed.
That's true. And he called up Samuel, or had the medium call up Samuel, and he was not really thrilled about what Samuel told him here.
No, I think he told him it's over.
Yeah, he said the Lord has done just
longer.
as he said he would. He is going to hand you and your entire army over to the Philistines tomorrow.
Right.
And you're all going to end up just like me.
Which was dead.
Right. So not too promising for Saul here, but he got what he wanted, which was an answer.
Correct.
That takes us to the last part of 1 Samuel today, and we're going to finish it out and get a little bit of a resolution to what's going on here. The Philistine army has mobilized now. The Israelites are camped out nearby, and David is kind of tagging along with the Philistine army at this point and wants to go into battle with them. He's kind of proven himself here with the Philistines, and he is kind of excited about
going to battle.
Yeah, he's ready.
And showing the entire nation what he can do. And so I think it speaks volumes to see how far David has fallen away from God right here, that he's willing to fight with ungodly people against the Israelites, his home people, and he's excited about it. And so, to me, at this very moment, this is about as far as David's going to get away from God before God breaks him.
Yeah. And the king, whose rule he's under at this point, likes him and wants him there and would like his help, and says that you've been with me for years. I've never found a single fault from the day you arrived until today. So he has no reason to believe that there's anything wrong with David. But the commanders are upset about it and feel like, how could we let him come to battle with us? He might turn on us. We have no idea if he's really going to do what he says he's going to do. So they're not wanting to allow David and his men to come with them.
And I think two things out of this particular part: the generals and these Philistine princes, they see what David can't. David has no place with these people. He's not a part of them, and they're not a part of him. And God uses them to see what David can. The other part is they bring back the song. Saul has killed his thousands, David his 10,000s. And this was a thorn in his side with Saul, and now it's going to be a thorn in his side here with the Philistines.
That's right. He thinks, that's a good thing, right? He's proven himself and has what it takes, but it really just makes the Philistines worry. And the king says, listen, as much as I want you to come with me and I believe in you and trust that you can do this, you've shown that you're an ally, I can't upset all these other people. So I'm going to need you to take your men and just go back.
At the first delight in the morning.
So David says, what have I done to deserve this? I don't understand why you're treating me this way. I've shown you that I'm loyal to you. And he says, I'm sorry, as far as I'm concerned, you're perfect. But you really have to go. You're just going to have to get out of here. So they head back.
This ain't for you.
Yes, they head back to the land of the Philistines, and the Philistine army goes on. So then it picks up there, and it says 3 days later, when David and his men arrived at their town, they find that their town had been raided. And
so let me put it this way: as you think, David's been off and trying raiding and doing what he does. And he probably hasn't been home in a little while.
Yeah.
So you're riding off and you see your son, or you see your town, maybe the sun's behind it, and you see smoke, but it's too much smoke to be a cooking fire. And so now you know something's going on. And I think this is the blessing, is had he gone to battle with the Philistines, he would have been months, maybe a year of fighting, and he would have never seen his family.
Right. That's true. They had taken everything, right? They'd taken the women and the children. It says they hadn't killed anyone, but they had taken everything from the town.
Yes.
So when they get there and they see what's happened, it says David is now in great danger because all his men are bitter toward him for this happening. So they begin to talk of stoning him. So it's like everywhere he turns, kind of, he has people against him.
And this is the point that God has broken David. They tore their clothes and wept until they could weep no more. And
it says, but David found strength in the Lord his God. So here he is again turning to God and saying, okay, I need help.
And there's a change coming right up here. David has, his men want to stone him. They don't want nothing to do with him. And he's going to seek the Lord's face. And what happens? His men get right back in line behind him.
They do. He asked the Lord, should I go after this band of raiders? Like, is this for me? If this last thing wasn't, is this? And he says, yes, you will surely recover everything that was taken from you.
He's back talking to God.
He is. So he takes all of his men. It says he takes all 600. 200 of them were too tired to complete the journey. And so he goes on with 400 of them and leaves the other 200 there. And it happens as they go, they find this Egyptian man in the field who's starving and needs some help. And so they give him some food, they give him some water, and they ask where he came from. And he says that he's an Egyptian and a slave, and that his master abandoned him because he was sick and he couldn't go with him.
And he immediately gives up the part, he says, my master abandoned me when I became ill. We just raided this town.
Yeah.
And basically describes the town that David is avenging.
Yes. So now David's got an informant, sort of.
Yes.
And he's helped him out. So he says, hey, like, will you lead me to these raiders? Can you tell me where they are? What's going on now?
And God uses this Egyptian here. David shows kindness, unexpected to a stranger. And God uses the stranger to shorten maybe their trip into battle.
Yep. And he promises the man that he won't return him to the master. He won't harm him in any way if he'll give him this information. So he does, in fact, lead David and his men to where the raiders are. And they find them, it says, eating and drinking and dancing with joy because of the vast amount of plunder that they have taken. So David and his men rush in and slaughter them all day long, all night long.
I imagine somewhat of like a 300, the movie 300, that kind of battle.
I have seen that one. It's a good one.
About time.
Finally. So David and his men take back everything, right? They get back all their women, all their children, everything that was taken. He rescues his wives. It says nothing was missing, small or great, son or daughter, nor anything else that had been taken. So now he's kind of a hero. He goes from everybody wanting to kill him.
From zero to hero.
Zero to hero. And so they turn back and go pick up the 200 men that they left behind. And so here's where it gets a little weird with his men. The 400 men who had gone into battle to recover all these things are feeling like they did the brunt of the work here. And so these other 200 who stayed behind want their wives and children back and the things that belong to them. And
the 400 are saying, what did you do to earn this? You're too tired.
Right. We did this. You don't get anything from this.
And I think, not to cut you off here, but I think what David is about to say is exactly how the Lord treats us. So if you want to give that.
Verse 23 says, but David said, no, my brothers, don't be selfish with what the Lord has given us. He has kept us safe and helped us defeat the band of raiders that attacked us. Who will listen when you talk like this? We share and share alike, those who go into battle and those who guard the equipment. So he's made it clear that
everybody's important.
Everybody, yeah, and we're going to treat them just the same way, even though they stayed behind. So everybody gets back what belonged to them, and that takes us kind of down into the next.
And then it also goes to say that David, once he gets home, he sends some of the plunder back to the elders of Judah. So kind of in a way of, guys, I'm sorry for what I've done right here. And I think to wrap this chapter up, that David shows a great mirror to the way Jesus is. We're like David's men in this scenario. David's like Jesus.
Right.
David he shows compassion to the men who couldn't make it into battle, like Jesus shows us compassion. And then he gives the gift back to others, to elders, just like Jesus takes care of all of us.
All right, then we go to chapter 31. It says, now the Philistines attacked Israel, and they're closing in on Saul and his sons. And so here we're going to see that.
Don't ruin it.
I'm sorry, okay. So closing in on Saul and his sons, and they actually kill 3 of Saul's sons here. And then it says the fighting grew fierce, and the Philistine archers caught up with him and wounded him severely.
This is more like probably 300. They get shot with the arrow, probably in his thigh.
Really painful.
It's about to go down.
And he's really just miserable, and he wants his armor bearer to kill him.
Yes.
Right? He says, just take my sword and kill me.
Let me fall on
They're going to torture me. I can't take it. Right? The armor bearer really doesn't want to do this, which I wouldn't want to do this either.
No, he's your king.
Bearer. Right. You don't want to do it. So instead, Saul takes his own sword and falls on it. And then his armor bearer sees what he's done and goes ahead and does the same thing. He wants to die next to his king.
Right.
And then it says, so we have Saul is dead, his 3 sons are dead, his armor bearer is dead. And then the last verse right there says his troops all died together that same day. So just like they were told what's going to happen, they're all dead.
And then the Philistines really go just insane.
Yeah.
They chop off his head. They string him up to a wall.
They strip everybody, all the dead.
Yeah. So they just got a bunch of, naked dead people hanging on town walls, which is just, a little bit.
Next level.
Yeah, insane.
Yeah. So.
And then it says that there's some people that go and finally get Saul's body off the wall, and they burn the body, bury the bones, and then they fast for 7 days. And that kind of wraps up part 1 of this story of David.
And what David was patiently waiting for, right?
Yes.
Was for Saul's reign to end.
The way the Lord taught David to wait and how to be patient. And so that moves us to the ultimate teacher, back to John.
Yep. We're in John 11 today. And here it says it was almost time for the Jewish Passover. Many people from all over the country had arrived in Jerusalem, and the Pharisees are wondering if Jesus will come through here for the Passover. The leading priests and Pharisees had publicly ordered that anyone seeing Jesus must report it immediately so that he could be arrested. Sure enough, 6 days before Passover, Jesus arrives in Bethany, which is where Lazarus lived with Mary and Martha. They had prepared a dinner in his honor. This is where Mary anoints his feet and wipes them with her hair. And then we get Judas Iscariot, right?
Right. And I think if we go back to the beginning of that, 6 days before Passover, this is basically the timestamp now. Now we have a reference. We know this is going into the last week or so of Jesus' life.
Yeah.
And so John, actually the Gospel of John, spends over half of his gospel just in this last week of Jesus' life.
Judas Iscariot, the disciple who would soon betray Jesus, says he gets on to Mary for using this perfume. We could have sold that and made a lot of money to give to the poor, which was clarifies that he doesn't care for the poor. He is a thief. He, is known for taking things and keeping them for himself anyway. So it's not that he really cared that the poor would be taken care of. And Jesus says, leave her alone. She did this in preparation for my burial. You will always have the poor among you, but you will not always have me.
And I think it's important to see right here that as this is going on, yes, Mary breaks this vase or pours this oil out, however the perfume gets on Jesus' feet. But she also does, there are 2 things here. The washing of the feet was made for the lowest of the low and the slaves. Not only does she wash Jesus' feet, but she also does it with her hair. And Hebrew women were not supposed to show their hair in public. And so she basically bears it all and puts herself in the lowest possible position to Jesus.
Right. Okay, so then when all the people hear of Jesus' arrival, they flock to see him, and then they're also here to see Lazarus because obviously, this is the man that Jesus has just raised from the dead. And at this time, the priests decide that they're going to go ahead and kill Lazarus too, because it was really, because of him that so many other people had turned to Jesus and decided to follow him. The next day, the news that Jesus was on his way to Jerusalem swept the city, and this is when the crowd brings the palm branches and goes down to the road.
Yeah, this is Palm Sunday.
Yep.
Now we're entering this time.
He comes in on a donkey, which fulfills this prophecy that the king would come in riding on a donkey's colt. And it says his disciples didn't understand at this time that this was fulfillment of a prophecy, but after Jesus entered into his glory, they remembered what had happened and realized that these things had been written about him.
Right.
And then the Pharisees said to each other, there's nothing we can do. Look, everyone has gone after him. So
I think at this point in time, them wanting to kill Lazarus is also telling, because, like, hey, we can kill Jesus here, but this guy was dead. Like, he was dead. And so we've got to kill him too, or he's just going to keep talking.
Right.
And so I think this shows how far they go. And it also, you probably have two types of priests here. You have the Sadducees and the Pharisees, and they generally don't get along at this point in time. But Jesus unites all people, and these two groups who don't like each other have united they just want to kill him, though. They're not trying to follow him. They've kind of, united for the wrong thing, but...
Okay. Good? You done?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so this takes us to the Psalm for today, Psalm 118, 1 through 18. And it says, give thanks to the Lord, for he is good. His faithful love endures forever. Let all Israel repeat, his faithful love endures forever. In my distress, I prayed to the Lord, and the Lord answered me and set me free. The Lord is for me, so I will have no fear. What can mere people do to me? The Lord is for me. He will help me. I will look in triumph at those who hate me. It is better to take refuge in the Lord to trust in people. It is better to take refuge in the Lord than to trust in princes. Though hostile nations surrounded me, I destroyed them all with the authority of the Lord. They surrounded and attacked me, but I destroyed them all. They swarmed me like bees. They blazed against me like a crackling fire, but I destroyed them with the authority of the Lord. They did their best to kill me, but the Lord rescued me. The Lord is my strength and my song and has given me victory. The strong right arm of the Lord has done glorious things. It has been raised in triumph and has done glorious things. I will not die. Instead, I will live to tell what the Lord has done. Which really the whole thing makes me think of David, right? And all that he's been through.
I think David wrote this one.
That it's the glory is to God, that he's the one that's brought me through all this and given me the strength to go on and to now see my success on the other side.
And today's proverb, Proverbs 15, 24 through 26. The path of life leads upward for the wise. They leave the grave behind. The Lord tears down the house of the proud, but he protects the property of the widows. The Lord detests evil plans, but he delights in pure words. This is basically, if you live an upward life, the Lord's going to take care of you.
Right.
And so that brings us to the end of our week. I think we have really enjoyed this. Thank you for putting up with our crazy antics and lack of movie watching. And with that, let's bow together with prayer one more time. Lord, we love you, and we just come to you right now, God, and just thank you for giving us another opportunity to worship you, Lord. Just to worship you, albeit virtually, Lord, and we're ready for the day that we can all get together in the building, Lord, and what a beautiful foreshadowing it'll be to the time when we can all be together in your glory in heaven, God. We pray for your blessings as we go through today, and all this we ask in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Journey on, church.
Because the journey is on.